When you walked into a room as a kid, did anything change? Not in a dramatic way. Just, did the conversation pause for a second? Did anyone look up and say your name? Or could you come in, sit down on the arm of the couch, stay for 20 minutes, and walk back out again, and nobody in that room would have registered either the arriving or the leaving? If the second one feels more familiar, and if somewhere along the way you figured out that being easy to overlook was actually a kind of safety, then this one is about you. There's a name for what you were doing. In the 1970s and 80s, a family therapist named Sharon Wegscheider-Cruse, working with families affected by addiction, noticed something strange. Children in chronically stressed households don't fall apart randomly. They organize. Each kid, without ever being handed a script, quietly takes on a job that helps the whole unstable structure stay upright. She described several. The hero, who achieves and makes the family look fine from the outside. The scapegoat, who acts out and absorbs the blame. The mascot, who cracks jokes the second the room gets tense. And the one almost nobody talks about, because talking about them would defeat the entire point. The lost child. We've looked at two of these roles before, and it matters that we say clearly how this one is different. The scapegoat survived by being the problem. All the family's tension had somewhere to land, and it landed on them, and at least that was a kind of attention. The golden child survived by being the proof. Their achievements were evidence the family was okay, so they were watched constantly, praised for performance, and loved on condition. Both of those roles are loud. Both of them get looked at. The lost child solved it a completely different way. They survived by shrinking the target until there was nothing left to aim at. No trouble, no demands, no mess, no needs. If you never asked for anything, you could never be the reason a fight started. If you were never in the room, you were never in the crossfire. So you got smaller and quieter and more self-sufficient, and the adults around you called it being good. Here's how it actually forms. Family systems theory, developed by psychiatrist Murray Bowen, describes a family less like a collection of separate individuals and more like one shared emotional organism. When the pressure inside that organism gets too high, whether from addiction, illness, a volatile parent, a divorce that never quite finished, or a sibling whose crisis swallowed everything, the attention in the house becomes a scarce resource. And a child does the math fast. There is only so much left over. Asking for a piece of it costs something, either a fight, or a sigh, or that specific tired look on a parent's face that says, please, not you too, not right now. So you stop asking. And because it worked, you keep not asking, for about 30 years. And here's the cruel efficiency of it. Nobody ever punished you for disappearing. That's what makes this role so hard to see. The scapegoat got yelled at, so at least there was a record. The golden child got praised, so at least there was a receipt. You got nothing, in both directions, and nothing leaves no evidence. Your survival strategy was rewarded with silence, which is exactly what silence feels like when it's working. Look at what this looked like on a regular Tuesday. You learned to make your own lunch before you were tall enough to reach the counter easily, so you dragged a chair over. You had a room, or a corner, or a spot behind the garage, and you knew exactly how many minutes you could stay there before anyone would come looking, and the answer was usually all of them. You could tell, from the sound of the front door closing, what kind of night it was going to be, and you'd already decided which room to be in before anyone said a word. You read a lot, or you played the same video game for hours, or drew in the margins of your homework, or lay on the floor with headphones on, learning every lyric on one album until it was basically a house you could go inside. When a fight started in the kitchen, you didn't listen at the door like the scapegoat did. You turned the volume up. You got sick and looked up the symptoms yourself instead of telling anyone. You had a permission slip due and signed it in a handwriting you'd practiced. You went to a parent-teacher conference where the teacher said, honestly, she's no trouble at all, and your parents nodded, relieved, and that was the whole conversation about you. There's a photo somewhere from a family event, and you're at the edge of the frame, or half behind someone, or you're the one who took it. And at some point a relative said the sentence that follows lost children into adulthood, you were so easy. You never needed anything. There was probably a night that sums the whole thing up, and it's never a big one. Something was happening downstairs. A door, raised voices, a sibling in the middle of whatever crisis was currently eating the house. And you sat on the edge of your bed, with your shoes still on, not scared exactly, just doing inventory, deciding whether going down there would make it better or make it one more thing, and you decided it would be one more thing, so you stayed. That decision, made hundreds of times in a row, is the entire personality people compliment you for now. You also had a whole inner life nobody ever asked about. A world you built, a story you were writing, a map you drew, a plan for what your house would look like one day. Not one adult in that house could have told you a single detail of it. Not because they didn't love you, because you had gotten so good at needing nothing that there was no visible opening to ask through. Look at how it shows up now. You go out to dinner with 4 people, and you wait until everyone else has ordered before you say what you want, partly because you're still deciding, but mostly because you're checking that nothing you pick will be inconvenient, or the most expensive thing, or something that makes the waiter come back a second time. Somebody asks what you did last weekend, and you give them 9 words and turn the question around, and the turn is so smooth that neither of you notices it happened. You've been in group conversations where you didn't speak for 40 minutes and left feeling like it went well. You are extremely, almost aggressively self-sufficient. You moved apartments alone. You sat in the ER alone. You handled the layoff, the breakup, the diagnosis, and told people about it afterward, in the past tense, once it was already resolved and no longer required anything from them. Being low maintenance isn't just a habit for you. It feels like the actual reason people keep you around. And when someone does offer help, something in your chest goes tight. Not gratitude, something closer to alarm, and then a fast calculation of how to pay it back before the end of the week. You're also the one who cancels. Not out of dislike, you genuinely wanted to go, right up until the hour before, when some old part of you decided everyone there would have a slightly better night without one more person to accommodate. You have typed and deleted a text asking someone to hang out more times than you'd want to admit, because you couldn't find a version of it that didn't sound like you were asking for something. At work, it looks like doing genuinely good work that somehow travels up the chain without your name attached. You don't jump into the meeting because the pause you're waiting for never quite arrives, and when you rehearse the sentence long enough, someone else says a rougher version of it and gets the credit. You've stayed in a job you'd outgrown for 2 extra years because leaving would mean a conversation. You get praised in front of people and physically want to leave the room. You'll take on more work rather than say the sentence, "I don't have capacity for this," because in your head that sentence still sounds like, "I'm going to be a burden." In relationships, it's quieter and it costs more. 6 months in, a partner realizes they still don't know what you actually want on a Saturday, for your birthday, from them. Because your honest answer for years has been, "I'm fine with whatever." And you mean it, mostly. You just also never learned that wanting things out loud is safe. When you're hurt, you don't fight. You go still, you get very polite and slightly further away, and you wait to see if they notice. And this is the part that quietly wrecks things, because to them it doesn't read as pain, it reads as fine. Attachment researchers would call this a deactivating strategy, turning the need down instead of turning it up. It's the exact opposite of a slammed door, and it does just as much damage. Your friendships have a pattern too. You're a genuinely good friend, and you almost never initiate. So the ones that survive are the ones with people persistent enough to keep reaching out, and you've lost several people you loved simply because you were waiting to be invited. None of this is coldness. That's the part worth saying plainly. Underneath the self-sufficiency is usually a lot of longing, sitting right there, fully intact, with nowhere it's ever been allowed to go. Some of it goes deeper than habit. Family therapists Ivan Bosormenyi-Nagy and Geraldine Spark described what they called parentification, when a child ends up carrying responsibilities that belong to the adults. Lost children often get a specific version of it, not caretaking a parent directly, but taking full custody of themselves at 8 years old, so that one less thing needs handling. And psychologists who write about childhood emotional neglect, including Jonice Webb, point out how hard this is to name later, because there's often no incident to point to. Nothing happened. That's the whole problem. Absence doesn't leave a scar you can show anyone, including yourself. So where do you actually start? First, practice taking up 1 square inch of space a day, on purpose, at stakes so low it's almost funny. Say the restaurant. Say you're cold. Say you'd rather see the other movie. You're not learning to be assertive. You're collecting evidence that having a preference out loud does not make the room turn on you. Second, when you feel the pull to disappear, and you'll know it, that specific moment at a party or a family dinner where you start planning your exit, try staying 10 more minutes. Just 10. Name what's happening while you do it. This is the old strategy, not a real emergency. The urge to vanish is a childhood tool, and tools can be set down. Third, let one person do one thing for you, and don't pay it back this week. Let them drive you to the airport. Let them bring the coffee. Sit in how uncomfortable that is, because that discomfort is the exact edge of the thing, and crossing it is the whole exercise. Fourth, Tell someone one true, unfinished thing. Not a crisis, and not a story you've already resolved, so it's safe to hand over. Something still in progress. I'm having a hard month. I'm scared about this. That's how people learn you're in there, and they genuinely cannot learn it any other way. And fifth, if this runs deep, a therapist who works with attachment and family systems can help. This is a pattern that responds well to being worked on with another person in the room, partly because the fix is the same shape as the wound. You practice being known, slowly, with someone whose job is to keep noticing you. You were never actually easy. You were resourceful, at an age when no child should have to be. What the adults around you read as a kid who didn't need much was a kid doing the hardest possible math, over and over, and deciding every single time that the household could not afford them. That math was true then. It isn't true anymore. The rooms you walk into now are not that house, and the people in them are not running out of attention, and there is nothing left that you need to protect by making yourself smaller. You're allowed to be seen, not as a reward for finally being useful enough, not after you've earned it by never asking for anything, but now, mid-sentence, unfinished, taking up a normal amount of room. Someone in your life is going to be genuinely glad you spoke up. You just have to be there long enough to find out.